Alright, so we've now created our text file, and now for this lecture we're going to learn how to read off that text file. So we're going to be covering quite a few functions actually that you can use with files today. The first function is going to be the open function. So whenever you're creating a file, or at least getting it into Python, the way it works is you type in a variable name for that file. For example, I can call this file1. Then you put an equal sign and then use the open function to get that file opened. Excuse me. Now, the open function takes in two parameters. The first parameter is the file name. So we called our file testfile.txt, and then we have to put in an access method. So the second parameter of the open function basically says, hey, how do you want to open this file? Do you want to read off it? Do you want to write off it? Do you want to do both? Do you want to append off it? Etc. etc. So there's, I believe, 15 or 16 access methods. I'm not sure the total number, but we won't cover them all. We'll cover the main ones. So for the purpose of this lecture, since we are just reading off the file, go ahead and put an R. And all this R signifies is that, hey, we're not going to append to this file. We're not going to read off this file. All we're going to do, we're not going to append. We're not going to write. All we're going to do is read. So if this gave you an error, for example, you hit file1 is equal to open testfile.txt, R. If this gave you an error, message me in the forums and I'll tell you how. I don't want to deviate from the course right now since, well, it would be confusing to a lot of people. However, if you did get an error for this small piece of code, definitely put a question in the forums and I'll get back to you almost instantaneously. Again, it's a quick fix, but I don't want to deviate too much from what I'm trying to get to right now. Alright, cool. So this worked for you, fantastic. Now what I want to do is, well, I want to first of all read off this file. So if you open the file, file1 looks fantastic. How do we read off this file? Well, it's file1.read. Very simple. So look at that. This is a Python file. Python is a fantastic language. Mac OS is a fantastic OS. I missed an A over there. I'm sorry about that, but that's fine. So this is pretty cool, right? We read off the file. We got our text. Now, just for fun, I want you to read off this file again. What happens? You only got a quotation mark. Well, this is where things get interesting. Think about why this happened. Why did we get a quotation mark? Well, the best way to explain this to you would be in terms of a cursor. Think about when you're reading a file, your cursor starts at the beginning. As you go through each word, your cursor moves slowly across each word, right? For example, if this was a file, this simple line was a file, I started from the beginning, I slowly read through the whole file. At the end, when I read off everything I needed from my file, my cursor is now at the end of the file. Now when I try reading the file again, hey, where's my cursor? It's at the end of the file. There's nothing else to read. So this is where a slight problem can encounter. You may think, hey, why isn't it reading? Well, the real issue here is our cursor currently is at the end of the file. What we have to do is get this cursor to the beginning of the file. So if you're wondering, well, I don't believe you, how is that true? What I want you to do is go ahead and type in this function, file1.tell. Tell. So all this tell function does is, it asks Python, hey Python, tell me where am I in this file? Well, Python told us that you're at the 84th character. Now, I'm not going to count all these characters, but I can definitely tell you that the 84th character is either the N or the character after N. So right now our cursor is at the end of the file and our goal is to bring it back to the front so that we can read it. The way to do that is, well, create a variable called position. Position is equal to file.seek 0, 0. Alright, looks like I forgot our file name was file1 and not file. So position is equal to file1.seek, okay? Now, I'm not even sure you had to assign it to a variable. Let's go ahead and try it out like this. Or actually, so file1.read, if you call this function again, you're now going to get the whole file. All I want to do here is I want to set this back to the beginning, just saying this, 0, 0. So we get 0. And now if we say file1.read, yay. Cool. So I was mistaken. You didn't have to set file1.seek's value to a position. I'm sorry if I went a little bit off track over there. That was just me testing a few things out. So let's quickly recap what just happened. Right now we had position is equal to file1.seek. You know what? Just forget this. You don't have to assign this to a variable. All you have to do is say file1.seek 0, 0. And all this means is I want you to move the cursor back to the beginning of the file. Okay? And once that's done, we can now read it again. If we say file1.read, this is a Python file, blah, 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 blah. So as you can see now, we can now read the file. So I'm setting this back to the beginning. And there's one last thing I want to show you, and this is that, let's say I just wanted, this is a Python file. I didn't care about what's after it. I only wanted the first 20 or so characters. Well, let's go ahead and try it out. So what you can do here is you can say file1.read and then in brackets the number of characters you want. So I know that this is a Python file is 21 characters. So if I hit enter, I get this is a Python file. But now, let's say I call this function again, file1.read21. What do you think happens? Well, it starts from the period. So this is very interesting. Wherever you let go from your cursor, if you read the first 10 characters, the next time you read anything, it'll start after the 10th character. That's something key. You must realize that whenever you're reading off files, remember where your cursor is so that you're not getting any gibberish or random text. Awesome. So to do a quick recap of what we covered. In the beginning, we learned about the open function. We realized that you need to put in the file name and you have to put in an access mode. After that, the file1.read function gives us the entire text in our file. Now, what we realized is the cursor starts at the beginning and goes to the end. And then the cursor remains at the end, causing the next time we call file1.read to give us a quotation mark. We realized that again, or actually verified that by calling the function tell, which told us where our cursor is in the file. We got 84. So to reset the cursor back to the beginning, we call the function file1.seek 0, 0. And all this did is it reset our, It reset our cursor back to the beginning. Then we can we read the file again, we got the data, we set it back to 0, and then I also told you, hey, if you want the first 10, the first 21 characters, you can specify the number of characters in your read function. So by doing that, we got this is a Python file and nothing else. And then I also told you that once you read those first 21 characters, the cursor is now at the 22nd character, or yes, the 22nd character. So it'll start from there the next time you call the read function. Awesome. So this lecture we covered everything there is to reading off files. Now in the next lecture, let's learn how to write to files. See you then.